and run by the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, PCORI. You heard a, you know, a story I'm going to tell, right? The bird story. The bird. We heard from, I can't, it was Greater Plains. I couldn't remember if it was Greater Plains or Mid-South. So a network in the middle of the country, Greater Plains Collaborative, which is 10 institutions in the Midwest. When they run meetings like this, they have a bird that you squeeze. It's a kind of a squeaky bird. If anything is being said that's not clear, if acronyms are being used that you don't understand, if you have something to say, just squeeze the bird. Now, we don't have the bird, but we...
No, but I have to tell you, I did look for squeezy sheep for the sleep grant, so...
okay.
Might be able to dig something up as a little party gift.
That would be great. If maybe that's going to be our little mascot. So I just wanted to encourage people to speak up. You're all here because of your wisdom that you bring to the project. Each of you has different types of wisdom, and the project is stronger collectively than it is if just a couple of us were to go off and try to develop sleep instruments. So just with the phone, I'm going to say the third time, if you have an issue, just chime right in, and we'll stop and try to get your answers questioned or get your comment heard. So I am turning it.
Can I just real quick
add?
Yeah,
here's Amy Cratchit.
Erica, Jeannie, any other youth or family partners who are on the line, please, please take Chris's advice. Speak up. You'll hear me speak up because there's a lot of things I probably won't understand. We can also, too, Catherine and I are happy to go over anything afterwards to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay, thank you. So back to Rachel here.
Actually, we're going to give it to Joanne, who's going to lead this part of the project.
So as a way of introduction, if you don't mind, this is, we are focusing, as you probably remember from the grant, on, of course, obviously the development of sleep patient-reported, child and parent-reported outcome tools, which are effectively, we think, very, very good questionnaires for the assessment of sleep. But we're doing this in a way that a little bit unique because of its focus on child and patient and family-centered research methodologies, and that is that we have this wonderful group of stakeholders that are coming together to assist with this process. So to sort of start, we've done a couple things. As you all know, we've asked you to submit some information that may have seemed a little bit unusual for joining a new research team as far as your goals and your potential roles, and we know that was a little difficult for people to complete in the partner profile. But the reason we wanted to do that was to start to get to know each other and understand our collective expertise and what each of us bring to the team. So we thought we'd start out by sort of testing people's or working through an activity here that will help us to get to know each other a little bit better. And we're going to play for a very short period of time some partner profile Jeopardy. So, Joanne, go ahead.
Have we trademarked this?
No, we haven't,
okay,
but
right.
We're going to test it.
So first, can everyone see the Jeopardy logo on their screen right now?
No.
No.
Oh.
It says waiting to view Joni Jean's screen.
Okay,
yeah.
You have to show your screen.
Can you click back to Rachel's screen?
Yeah, I'm going to move over.
We need that little dum, dum, dum.
Yeah, right.
While she's showing her screen. That looks promising.
Show my screen.
Yeah, show my screen.
All right.
Yes.
Can everyone
Okay,
see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
If you hit that arrow, the orange arrow, you will minimize that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to play Jeopardy as a way to get to know everyone on the team. So all the questions are about all of the team members. And this isn't going to be Team Jeopardy. You're all on your own. So the way this is going to work is, can you see a chat function on your GoToMeeting screen.
What would that look like?
If you're on the computer client, then you should see it underneath attendees in your left-hand box. There should be something that says chat that you can click. If you're on the web interface, it'll be a little speech bubble.
Otherwise, we can maybe just shout out, buzz in. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to indicate that you know any other way to answer to one of these, that's fine too. So we'll just work through a couple just for fun. Go ahead.
Would everyone rather shout out or type?
Type. I like shouting.
Shouting? All right, so
We'll work on this together.
we can do the first person to shout out gets to answer the question.
All right, go ahead.
So the categories are our experiences, we like to, our roles, we will, and grab bag. So the first person to buzz in gets to answer the first question. Gets to pick the first question. I'll wait.
I'm in.
All right, Catherine is our first contestant.
So we have a question. What if it's about her? Can she answer it?
Yes.
Yes.
Just luck of the draw.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right.
I'll take grab bag for 400, please.
All right, grab bag for 400.
Yeah, I'm confident.
She is writing and looking to publish her own young adult novel.
This is a question for me.
Yes.
I am going to go with Jeannie Schultz.
Jeannie Schultz. And the answer is Dominique Vine. I'm so sorry. Your run is over.
Dominique is not on the phone, but one of our wonderful youth partners who is going to represent, actually share leadership with Jilly Dos Santos as our youth partner team, which we have 4 youth partners, 2 12-year-old guys, 14, I'm sorry, oh my gosh, I'm glad they're not on, 14-year-old guys as well as 2 young women who have had some experience with sleep challenges.
That's great.
So we can accept the new contestant now. Who wants to go next?
Terrible. Chris.
Okay, I'll take. I want to try to take what I should know. We will for 500.
We will for 500.
We like to.
Well, now it's we like to for 500. When I'm not creating sleep surveys, I spend time with my family, go to school to get my PhD, like to ski, and work on side interior design projects.
Okay, I know who this is. Who is Rachel Tenorelli?
Ding, 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 ding.
That's correct. Rachel Tenorelli. You get to choose another question.
There's no doubt that child comes in from you.
I did not show Evan, who looks exactly like that. Maybe we should make it so the person who's it's about should do the next one. Yes.
Oh, that works. Rachel.
Yeah.
So I will take our experiences for 100.
Her experiences for 100. She's a CHOP-based researcher who has worked with the Promise Network in the past and has helped to develop a lot of surveys that measure different aspects of kids' health.
I say Catherine Bevins.
It's not very many. She, yes.
Who is?
Who is Catherine Bevins?
That's correct.
I'm going to pass my my use here to Brandon since I know he's on.
How about? Let's see. Yeah, I'll take grab bag for 300.
Nice.
Okay, grab bag for 300. I provide facilitation support to students who are currently dependent on the welfare system and are seeking education to be more employable.
I know this one because I was reading his profile. I'm drawing a complete blank.
Complete
I'm going to
blank.
kick myself when I find out.
There's a time limit to this, sir.
The answer is who is Erica Evans?
I knew that. Promise.
Erica, do you want to tell us a little more about yourself and your personal professional experiences that bring you here?
I think she lost phone connection. I saw a little bubble that came up that said she left, and she typed up somebody, staff said I lost phone connection. I think that might be her.
Okay. Well, maybe, bummer. Maybe she's seeing this picture of herself on her computer. That would be strange. Amy, do you want to take the next crack here?
Okay, I'm going to take our experiences for 200.
Oh, wait a minute. She's
Oh, wait.
saying our roles for 100.
All right, our roles for
okay.
100.
Sorry, Erica.
She is a CHOP-based clinician who has more than 25 years of experience researching different aspects of pediatric sleep.
There's only one person that can do that.
Yep.
Who's answering?
Well,
I think
Erica
Erica is.
Erica. Oh. Who is Carol Marcus?
We answered for you, Erica.
Carol Marcus, let's see.
Indeed.
Correct. Who is Carol Marcus?
Hey, this is Jody Mandel. I could have been the answer for that one, too.
Oh, sorry.
I think we have the exact same
profile.
count.
Carol, do you want to add anything else here to our description of you?
I guess that covers it.
Okay.
But I agree with Jody's comment.
You want to pick a category?
Our roles.
Or
Only 100. Oh, no, but less 200.
200. Our role for 200 is a developmental behavioral pediatrician and assistant professor of pediatrics at Johns Hopkins and MedStar Health.
Can we jump in?
I know that if I could see the list of people on the call, but I can't see
that would help.
I know.
Somebody else
All
want to
yours.
in and fill this?
Barbara Howard.
Yes.
Barbara Howard.
Yay!
That is correct.
Barbara, are you on the phone?
She couldn't make it today.
Couldn't make it. I know that was Lisa, right?
Yes.
Do you want to add anything about Barbara that we should know?
She's
Here, maybe
created,
some scandalous?
created a measurement system to be used in primary care, and she's just really excited about being part of the project. So, yeah.
She's terrific. This is Judy Owens. Yeah, she's really great.
A couple more we have time for.
Hey, would you like to pick a category? I heard you chiming in.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me see. Well, I guess we like to for 500 is the only one left in the big box.
Well, that's 400. That one's been taken, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do we like to for 400. When I'm not creating sleep surveys, I like to spend time with my kids, lay on the beach, and practice Pilates.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I
The answer is Amy. This is Lisa.
That's
That's
correct.
you?
Who
I
is
didn't know
Amy
you did.
Craftsman?
I'm learning. I didn't know you did Pilates.
Yeah, that's the only thing that keeps me sane.
Nice. Amy Cratchman is our lead parent partner. Did you go yet?
No?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, how about our experiences for 300?
Okay, our experiences for 300. I don't know how that
Oh, that's
happened.
awesome.
Oops, sorry. We'll pick another one as soon as I can get that back up.
There we go.
We'll click through. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I guess I'll do then, we like to for 200.
Okay, we like to for 200. When I'm not creating sleep surveys, I run, bike, and fly fish.
Christopher Forrest.
That is
Totally
correct.
Did you know that?
We like to fish.
Fly fish, yes, absolutely.
I'm going to Wyoming again.
There he is, as far as our principal investigator. Is there anybody else on the line who hasn't had a chance to play? Jeannie?
Jeannie. Yep, I'm on the line.
All right, give it a try, would you?
Little hole here.
All right, we'd like to for 300.
Right, we like
This is a good one, it's hobbies. Various things.
for 300,
Oh,
which is the daily double.
Daily bugle.
When I'm not creating sleep surveys, I run, bike, play outside, and learn how to use power tools.
All right, Amy Crotchman and Kathy, you need to help me cheat. Who is it?
Not Brandon.
You do. Pretty sure. That's because you read these carefully.
I wish I could help you cheat, but I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I think it's Catherine.
It is.
Catherine.
It is.
Catherine Bevin.
Hello.
House remodeling, power tools.
Yeah, yeah. Why did you get power tools? That's a little weird. We're working together for too long. How about Lauren? You want to finish it for us? Sure.
Would you like to do the final Jeopardy?
Sure.
Finishing it off?
Yeah.
Okay, final Jeopardy. Promise. What does it stand for?
Every time I say this, I always
I mess it up.
patient-reported outcome measurement. I can't remember something information system. Ding 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 ding.
Okay. Nice job.
You are correct.
It's kind of like trail off.
Yeah.
Patient. Very good. Excellent.
No one wins any.
So actually, that's a perfect segue. First of all, I want to encourage everyone to, we're going to circulate the partner profile that was not an exercise that was made to be painful, meant to be painful to anyone, and we really appreciate you returning those to us. But, you know, to get to know each other, largely because we really want to be able to tap into everybody's expertise on the team, and also be able to meet their needs in terms of understanding what they want from the project. So I'm going to encourage everybody to take a look at those as we circulate them later today. If you haven't gotten one in, please send it, and we'll circulate it to the team. So Final Jeopardy was a good segue, I think, to our discussion of the grant.
You should also have gotten the PDF of all the partner profiles that we concatenated together in the invite, so you can feel free to use them.
That's
If
right.
you want to update them, or we filled in a few of them for ones we didn't get back yet. You can just let us know on how you would like to do that, or if there's any inconsistency. So we'll start with with a review of the project, which is presented by Christopher Forrest and.
Yeah, I could maybe just share with you.
Yeah. So, Chris here. So, I wanted to just start by talking what we're trying to accomplish. We have 2 years together as a team, and fortunate thing. There's a little background, and we have background noise too. But if you can mute your phone when you're not talking, that would be terrific. I thought I would start with what we're trying to achieve and why it's important, and then how it fits into other initiatives that are going on throughout this country and now the world. So I started thinking about sleep and how we measure our experiences with sleep several years ago when I started getting interested as a physician who was moving into the research world on how to measure children's health. And my clinical background is in taking care of children, and my research has been devoted to improving the health of children. And what I learned very early in my career is that we really don't know a lot about what it means to be healthy. We know a lot about what it means to have disease. And so I've spent a good portion of my career thinking about if I say I'm healthy, or if a kid says I am healthy, what does that mean? And all along I thought that having good sleep practices, having a good night's rest, waking up feeling refreshed has been very important to health. And I never got the opportunity to write a grant to get something like this funded. Along the way, I was very lucky to work down the hall from Lisa Meltzer, who spends her professional life, like some of you as well, working on taking care of children and family who have sleep problems, but also thinking about how to improve sleep health for children and their families. And we connected with Catherine and now all of you when we realized that there was an opportunity to get some money from PCORI, which is not the government, but it gets money from the government. It's kind of a strange entity. Sometimes people call PCORI quasi-public because it gets money from the government, but it's not accountable to the government on a year-to-year basis the way that some of the other entities like the National Institutes of Health, which sponsors research, are. So we were lucky to get this funding, and we're embarking now on developing essentially questionnaires that can be put into computers, or they can be filled out with paper and pencil, or increasingly they can be completed on your smartphones or tablets that assess not whether or not you have a problem with your sleep, but more along the lines of how good was your sleep. We expect these measures to be used in research studies that evaluate ways to improve sleep health. Other research studies where a medication may be used, and we're trying to figure out, does this new medication work better than an existing medicine? And also at the same time, do either of these medicines have an impact on sleep health? Sometimes we call those clinical trials from a research perspective. In addition, I've been contacted by numerous organizations that have heard about this grant that want to start embedding our questionnaires, even though they haven't been developed yet, in their own surveys. So even the national government, which does annual surveys, is interested in trying to take some of our sleep health questions and putting it into some of the national surveys. So I think that when we're done, we can step back and feel proud that we've done a great job, and that's my hope, of creating questionnaires that are useful for research, that can be used to improve health care for children and their families, and can be used by large entities like the national government to monitor how well the nation is sleeping. The context of all this, where this sort of fits in other national efforts, is the Patient-Reported Outcomes Measurement Information System, PROMIS. PROMIS is an initiative, and Helena Carreri, who's on the line, has been very involved in that as a translation and translatability expert, as has our group. It's an effort that the federal government has spent $200 million, that's 200 with 6 zeros following it, to create new questionnaires on many different aspects of people's health, from how well they get around, meaning how well they function physically, their pain levels, their anxiety levels, how socially isolated or lonely you feel, from a kid's perspective, the quality of your relationships with friends. We developed measures of how stressed out you feel, how physically active you are, etc. A large number, now dozens and dozens of different measures. The missing piece, even after spending $200 million, was a set of measures on children's sleep health. Some investigators before us from Pittsburgh, and they're actually part of this project, Paul Piconis and his colleague Dan Bussey. I think I always mispronounce his last name. Am I getting it right? Yeah, it's Bussey. All right. Dan's correcting me about 7 times. They developed measures of adult sleep health, and we're learning from them and extending it to children. But the measures that will be developed will be adopted, we hope, by the PROMIS system. They'll become PROMIS measures, and they'll live in a family of other measures that get used, as I said, in research purposes, to improve health care, and also to measure the health of populations. So I just wanted to give you that context that we're not acting as a sort of a small group in isolation. We're actually working with and alongside of hundreds of other scientists and parents and patients and clinicians who are developing and have developed other measures for the PROMIS system.
What do you think the advantage of a PROMIS instrument is versus, any other instrument that measures sleep right now?
Yeah, so are you going to touch on that? Okay, so when we put together this grant for consideration by PCORI for funding, we found that there were about 200 measures of children's sleep. And when we critically looked at those measures, we saw that none of them had characteristics that we thought made them good measures. So they were developed. People wrote down questions about children's sleep, but they lacked precision. They weren't as accurate as you would like. Think about accuracy like when you shoot an arrow at a target. If the middle of the target, the bullseye, is being really accurate, these measures were missing the target completely. And so they didn't have the accuracy that we would like to see. A lot of them were very disease-specific. They were problem-focused, that they weren't really measuring sleep health. The other advantage of what we're trying to do in terms of assessment is when we're done, we're going to be able to measure different aspects of sleep health using a very small number of questions. So with only 3 to 5 questions, we can measure someone's quality of their sleep, how refreshed and wakeful they feel the next day. So we call that efficiency. We're working towards creating a large number of items that can be given by computer so that only for each person, 3 to 5 are required for each different sleep health attribute, whether it's your quality or wakefulness or your sleep practices. So in statistical sort of measurement terms, I'll use some of the fancy words. The advantages of the PROMIS approach are its precision, which is how accurate it is when you shoot that arrow at the target. Are you actually capturing someone's sleep health? Understandability. Are the questions actually understood well by kids? We will be doing extensive testing of our questions to make sure that kids understand them, as do parents. The efficiency, we hope to only give a few items for each sleep concept. And we hope to be measuring sleep health, so the validity, if you will. Those are, I think, the key characteristics that distinguish what we're trying to do from others. All right, I want to, just before I turn over to Catherine, because Lisa has been working with us for so many years on dreaming about this project, I just wanted to give you, Lisa, a minute to try to help put some of this in context from your perspective as a sleep clinician and a sleep researcher.
Great, thank you. So like Chris said, I have been dreaming about this project for years. I've been involved with sleep research and sleep clinical stuff, and the ability to ask children and their families about their sleep. We do it in clinic, but we don't always ask the right questions, or we may not know necessarily what the right questions are. And the measures that we have, as Chris was saying, sometimes they have too many questions, or that type of thing. Also, research-wise, we have a limited number of really good measures that are used a lot, but we don't have great measures that kids report on their own sleep. Most of the measures have parents reporting about their kids' sleep, which is fine up to a certain age. But at a certain point, kids know more about their sleep than parents do. And there's often aspects of children's sleep that parents aren't aware of, such as kids waking up in the middle of the night. Sometimes they don't tell their parents, and so parents may not be always aware of what's going on with a child's sleep. So it's really important to have that child perspective. And then the other big thing that's been lacking in terms of both use in a clinic, use in research, even just for patients to follow and monitor their own sleep, is something that can be used over development. So we have some great baby measures, and we have some really good school-age measures, and we have a couple of teenage measures, but they're very different from each other. So we can't follow longitudinally over time as a child grows up the exact same sleep constructs. And so that's really important, as well as having this measure that we can use as kids grow up and then hopefully even into adulthood. So that makes it a nice way to look at sort of the bigger picture of research. And then one of the really nice things I think about this project is the way we are moving towards this concept of sleep health. We know a lot about sleep disorders, and we know a lot about sleep problems, but as Chris was saying, that idea of what is healthy sleep is very important. And there's a lot of questions, even this week and last week, there's been a lot of media about how much sleep is enough and how do you know if your child's getting enough sleep and the right amount of sleep and the right quality sleep. But we need something to capture what that means to be healthy sleep so that we then can understand better what is not necessarily healthy sleep. So it's sort of a combination of all of those factors, and so that's why I'm really excited that we are finally doing this project. So there you go.
Thank you, and that's why we are really happy to have Lisa's and others' leadership, especially around the conceptualization or understanding what and components of sleep are so important and how we can express these to people. This is Catherine. I want to just take a little bit of time to get down a little more into the nuts and bolts of the project so that we can understand where we're going in a slightly more concrete way, and then I'll spend a little bit of time talking about the unique aspects of the project with Amy's comments as well, I think, related to stakeholder engagement. Before we get into that, are we doing okay? Does anyone have questions, comments, concerns? Is this the project you all thought you signed up for? So Chris wants to know. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I wanted to start actually by showing some examples of different concepts that we propose to measure in the grant. And so as Chris was talking about the development of questionnaires, or in our terms, large sets of items that measure or can be used to measure different components of sleep, we identified 3. And what I've shown here is just the very first one that was called sleep quality or sleep disturbance. The reason it actually has 2 names is something that Lisa alluded to, and that is that when some other investigators who work on PROMIS developed the sleep measures for sleep questionnaires for adults, they developed a set of items that measured what they referred to as sleep disturbance. We've sort of renamed that and changed it a little bit because of some developmental considerations and called it sleep quality. What it is referring to are all of these things listed on the screen. The combination of depth, onset, continuity, awakenings, and so on. You can read these. What I've shown here in black are some sample items. Don't beat them up. We'll have plenty of time to do that in the future, and we'll ask you all to do that certainly. But these are just some samples of the types of actual questionnaire items. I should add that they always have a STEM in the past 7 days, or whatever the STEM is that we select. And the response categories are generally a 5-point scale from never to always. So, so these are the sleep quality, sleep disturbance concepts. The second large dimension of sleep, aspect of sleep that we propose to develop questionnaires for is wakefulness. You can see some of the concepts. Again, I'm just trying to help people sort of think concretely about the measures we're developing. Sleepiness, alertness, and a couple sort of impact type concepts like affect related to good or poor sleep, the degree to which daily activities may be disrupted by poor sleep, and so on. And then as I think Chris and maybe Lisa too already mentioned, that we have a third dimension as well, and it is an incomplete list at the moment, but it has to do with sleep practices or sleep behaviors. What are the behaviors that either facilitate or inhibit getting good sleep? So some things we have currently on the list are the timing of going to sleep and waking, environmental considerations, diet, and bed, which is meant to mean location in this situation. Amy, you're chuckling, are you?
2 or 3 of them that I can take off for myself.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to say 2 or 3 I could take off for myself, but but for your son as well. So these 3 large categories of questionnaire items is the concepts we're trying to measure by the end of this grant: sleep quality, wakefulness, and sleep practices. And we've already done a good amount of work, as you likely know, on the development of these questionnaires, but we have a long way to go in the next 2 years as well. So I just want to mention a little bit about the progression, kind of at a very high level, of what actually happens or needs to happen in order for us to develop these measures. And I apologize for this slide being a little bit busy, but if you could just kind of follow me from the top to the bottom as I walk through this. The first set of activities that we use, and this is in accordance with the recommendations that are made by the National Institutes of Health's PROMISE program, we call qualitative development. And that is that mostly the time during which we're getting direct input from either measures that have already been developed, through a literature review, expert interviews. We've already done those things. We have also conducted interviews with children age 8, and Lisa's going to touch on this a little bit later, and parents to understand what aspects of sleep they view as important and how they are experienced. And then we created a set of items based on that information that is kind of like our very initial pass. We call that, at that stage, an item pool. We write items and then we subject them to a number of different types of analyses before we even actually administer them to people. So we do a reading analysis with it, and that helps us to understand at what grade level are these items sort of written at, so that they're not, it's one indicator of how difficult the item is. We really want these to be written in the sort of 3rd, 4th grade level. We also, as Helena has already begun to help us with, subject these items to translatability review. Helena, I don't want to put you in the spot, but do you want to maybe say a few words about what that entails?
Sure. So I go through the items one by one, read the text, and based on my experience with translation and knowledge of other languages, I assess if it's easy to translate. That's the first very basic step. But also identify wording that may be ambiguous or too idiomatic, not just for translation, but perhaps for a very diverse population, because people who will answer items in English may not all have the best knowledge of English if that was not their first language. So there are lots of aspects affecting how one understands what they're reading. And so one of the purposes of the translatability review is really make it very simple, very clear, unambiguous, and easy to translate.
Thank you. And we've already begun the process of, we've asked Helena, and she's done a wonderful job helping us, or actually not helping us, actually reviewing the items. And then we review it and sort of try to make some modifications. We'll do that iteratively a few times.
I just wanted to say, an interesting aspect of doing this translatability review so early in the process of instrument development, not after you develop these English questions and then go back and translate them, like a lot of questionnaires do, is that, it gives you the opportunity to go back and relook at your items on how you wrote them, see if you can write them even better, and make sure that the items that you're thinking about are really able to be translated into a different language.
Yeah.
So that makes it a unique aspect, I think, of doing the translatability early,
right.
Which I never realized before I started working, with the PROMISE methods, that really, that step really helps in that sense.
And it is one of the areas that, well, it's an area where most measures, and in particular most pediatric sleep measures, don't take this step. I think I agree that it's really, really essential. The other thing that we do before, again, we give any of the items to anyone is to go through a process that we call cognitive interviews. And what that means basically is we work with youth and age 8 to 17, because they're the intended level of, age level of respondents for these measures, and the parents of children aged 5 to 17. Again, that's the group of intended responders, and we ask them to complete the measures, but complete the actual items. But more than that, we ask them to help us understand how it is that they're responding to the question. How do they understand certain terms within the question? So it's an interview that we do to understand how people are understanding the meaning of the items. And it's pretty work intensive, but it's really important. One of the things that I think we've learned along the way is often those items that don't work very well in the translatability review are the same items that don't work well in the cognitive interviews, because there's usually a way to simplify some of the more problematic items. That's the stage where we are going to begin as a group, and I'm going to talk a little bit later very briefly about how we're expecting people with different roles on the project to contribute to each of these stages. After we get through the qualitative development of the, I'll call them item pools at this stage, large sets of items that measure those 3 different aspects of sleep health. Of course, we have to give the surveys themselves to very large numbers of kids, and we will access those kids in one of 2 sources. One is through an internet panel. The internet panel will help us to get a nationally representative sample, close to a nationally representative sample of kids and parents. So we're working now with dyads, 1,500 child-parent dyads, and then a smaller group of parents of children aged 5 to 7, because we wouldn't ask those children to complete the measure by themselves. So we would actually ask them to respond to all of the survey questions. At the same time, we're going to be working with some clinical samples, and these are samples that we hope and expect to have a higher level of or poor sleep health. So working with parent-child dyads from the sleep lab, as well as some 100 or so child-parent dyads for children who have autism because of the recognized sleep challenges within that subgroup.
Why do you want people to have good sleep, like a range of different types of?
You're just firing off the good questions. The idea here is when we collect this data, we really need to have people complete the surveys who have a full range of different sleep experiences, from very, very poor sleep health all the way up to really excellent sleep health, so we can understand better how each item works for different parts of that population. Does that make sense?
To have a broad range of really, really poor sleep to all the way, like, the item can measure that whole breadth of really poor sleep to kids who don't have
the set of items should measure that full range. That's important because if we want to be able to measure change from very poor to very excellent or anything in between, we need to make sure we have items that assess each of those different levels of the concepts.
So I have one other quick question. So the internet panel, is that going to be, so will those surveys be generated like to a listserv, or how are they going to go out?
Oh, we're using Knowledge Network for this.
We typically use, in our previous projects, and what we planned for this project is to use a probability-based internet research panel. What that means is that this internet panel tries to go out and recruit participants to be part of the panel. It's not, there's other internet panels out there from research that people can volunteer to be part of. The reason why we go for more of the probability-based sample is that you don't bias your sample, because there's a certain person, maybe, that potentially that could want to sign up for internet panels that don't represent the U.S. population, or those hard minority groups that we can't reach through this type. Knowledge Now Network is the probability-based sample company we use. Actually gets a list of people and tries to recruit those people that are harder to reach. So for example, in people who don't have access usually to a computer, if they are selected and they don't have a computer, then the internet panel will give them a computer. So that's not a limitation. So you're getting a whole different range of people within them. And a nice way to make sure that you get a wide representation of people.
So one of our, there's a decision here.
Yeah.
So one of Carol Marcus's longtime and now my new time colleagues is a woman named Susan Redline, who works in Boston at Harvard University, and she asked me on Thursday whether her network, which is focused on people with sleep health issues, could participate in this project. They have an internet site. She said they'd be willing to put the questions up so that people in their network could take the questions and we could use the data kind of collaboratively. I said, let me talk to the team. We're going to be meeting. And I thought that was a great idea. I mean, it would supplement what we have.
More towards more people in the sleep challenged.
Right.
It might, I think might be.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think the limitation to our design and our research is that, the clinical sample is we have to go and get those people. So that's why our numbers are a little bit lower, although they're lower, but they still are statistically significant amount of people in that range. But it's the time invested. That's why the internet panel is also an advantage, because you can get a large amount of people in a quick amount of time, and they do it at their convenience. When you do reach out to them and arrange it with the sleep lab when they're seeing.
Yeah, often see people face-to-face.
Exactly. So.
This is Judy Owens. Hi, this is Judy Owens. I'm actually on the steering committee for Susan's grant, PCORI grant, and I just want to emphasize that it's focused on sleep apnea. So it's not, it's not the range of sleep disorders. Although obviously some of those individuals are going to have more than one comorbid sleep disorders. We also have not started to recruit children yet. It's been focused on adults. But since sleep apnea is very often a hereditary disease, I think one way to get at pediatric patients would certainly be through their parents and grandparents. And I think this would be a really nice cross collaboration because we're struggling a little bit with designing questions that are going to be appropriate. One of the big issues that came up, for example, recently is this going to be a self-report questionnaire for kids from 13 on, from 8 on, from 4 on? Particularly when it taps into not just sleep practices and kind of subjective sleep complaints, but also, more sort of medical history kinds of issues, which you guys aren't getting into, obviously, as much. But I think this is a nice example of two patient-centered grants that could benefit mutually from each other.
Yeah. And if I could just mention real quick, two of the leads, the patient, and I also want to say parents, I met last week and are really energized, and one of them suffers from sleep apnea and has a child with sleep apnea. So
right, with some collaborators. There's this PPR.
It's the it's the Patient Powered Research Network.
Okay.
All right. So let's.
And we wanted to also. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we should make it an action item for us.
Yeah.
To reach out and set up a meeting with Susan Redline and the parent or the patient co-investigator.
Yeah, I have four cards in my office.
Okay.
Adam and.
Yes, I've met Adam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small world.
Carol,
and
I just want to make sure. Carol Marcus, would you like to be part of that conversation?
Yeah, and
with Susan?
Can you hear me or am I on mute?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And I just need to say I need to go for the call, unfortunately, at this point. I might be able to rejoin in about half an hour, if you're still on.
Thank you. I wanted to mention, too, Lauren Daniel is also here and may also have some opportunity to work with a special clinical population.
Yeah, I think that certainly we see a lot of sleep disturbances in oncology, and I'm working with several of you where we've been kind of surveying parents to get an idea of how we can best measure what's going on with sleep in children during treatment, kind of what their experience is, kind of what the measures capture and what the measures miss, at least existing measures. Certainly a lot of room to survey in that population as well.
That's awesome. Okay. This is all getting at one of those kind of unique features of the PROMIS methodology and the instruments, and that is that these measures are domain-specific, not meant to be condition-specific. So it is important that we consider how the items may be interpreted for people in different families and children in different clinical subpopulations to make sure they're appropriate for those different groups, but that overall we're trying to develop measures that work across conditions, within domains, I guess, or within different aspects of sleep. Just to kind of get back to, thank you, Chris, for responding to that, but kind of get back to what we're actually doing very quickly is once we administer those surveys that we mentioned, then we're going to move into this phase where we all go underground and Brandon does his thing. It's where we do the psychometric evaluation and all the kind of fancy statistics to help us understand what items are performing the best. Now, it doesn't mean that those are the most meaningful items necessarily or the ones that make the most sense or are most useful clinically. So we're really going to want to work together at this stage to select items to retain, to keep in those item pools, those banks of items that are working well from a measurement perspective, but are also really meaningful, clinically relevant, meaningful to parents and so on.
So for the parents, for the youth, we need to know what convergence is.
You don't need to know that, but I'm going to get back into one thing that we're going to help do to help along with that issue, that we have a lot of technical stuff going on with this measurement, and that is through our learning sessions that we talked about. Ultimately, the final products, as we started off with, are a combination of different types of measures. And these include what we call computerized adaptive tests. Chris already mentioned that, and those are those algorithms that computers can use to actually administer a really small number of items that represent a larger concept because it's tailored to the person who's taking the test. We'll develop scoring manuals, and we'll also be able to develop some short forms, generally 4 or 8 items, item questionnaires that can be used to measure most of what the larger combination of items are assessing. Any questions about the process? That's at least 2 years and 15 minutes. I want to say, I know we're a little bit behind on time, but I did want to mention a few things about the kind of unique ways that we're promoting stakeholder engagement in this work. And Amy and others, please jump in. As we all know, I'm sure, most of the time in research, stakeholders, meaning in our case, the 5 groups who are represented here, are considered at best either contributing to research as an investigator or as a research participant. So when we're working with kids and parents, generally they are our so-called subjects, right? They're the research participants. In this case, that aspect of stakeholder engagement is really important to us because we need to make sure that when we're doing interviews, as I mentioned before, those cognitive interviews with kids and parents, that they're giving us feedback that helps us make sure that the tools that we're going to develop are really going to represent parent and child perspectives. That's kind of one level. But the second level, and it's more pertinent to what we're talking about here, is stakeholders as partners. And what we mean by that is that all stakeholders, groups, and representatives of stakeholders, I'll refer to as us, partners, are contributing to different aspects of the research from its development, as you did in the grant stage, but also its implementation, how we're doing it, and its oversight. So I just want to, first of all, recognize everybody who is here and some who are not, who represent the long version of this is our Patient and Family-Centered Research Partnership, or partners. In this case, sleep partners, I guess. Not really. So we have 6 different groups of people, parents, clinicians, advocates, youth, and researchers. We also have our project staff. Those folks who have asterisks next to their name are sort of considered to be kind of leaders of those groups. We have not yet identified, I think, an advocate for that role, and we should consider that. But together, those folks we're saying are representing the research management team. If you have an asterisk next to your name, then that means, of course, that your job is to represent the people who are listed nearby you. And of course, we're going to have opportunities to come together as we are here today as a whole team. But sometimes when we just have to make quick decisions or have weekly meetings, we're going to be, I think, meeting within the research management team group. Does that make sense? Okay. So the partnership itself really has 2 broad areas of focus. One is, as I've written here, to just do the work, right? To meet the study objectives, to make sure that the project is going as intended. But the second, that maybe doesn't immediately come to mind, but still, is to actually study and advance the methods of partnership-based research. The proposal about engagement proposal that we put together for this grant was pretty innovative, I think. we have some kind of unique activities, including the partner profiles that we're going to be trying out. And we're hoping that you'll all humor us and get involved in helping us to evaluate how effective that is and helping us to understand whether or not it actually is impacting the work that we're doing together. So for example, in the grant, we put forth 4 different guiding principles for our partnership activities, and even though this was in the grant, this doesn't mean that this can't be modified for purposes as we are developing our partnership charter, where we'll spell these out in more detail. And what we did is we identified partnership activities that were meant to promote each of these 4 guiding principles. So clearly, relationships among the partners are defined by respect. We proposed to develop a partnership charter that would spell out all of the structure of the partnership, its purpose, its guiding principles, and be very clear about what partner roles and responsibilities are. What we proposed was that we would develop that within 3 months of convening here now, and we would be asking all of us as partners to review that, contribute to it, and approve it before we move forward and finalize that. The second guiding principle is understanding partners' strengths, needs, goals, and resources. And although it must have felt a little bit weird, that's one of the primary drivers for having people complete the partner profiles. We want to recognize that everyone has something to bring here, also that everybody wants to get something naturally out of participating here. So being clear about that will help us to capitalize on everybody's strengths, meet their goals, and really importantly, we've already seen evidence of this, understand what resources people bring to the table. We've already heard about Lauren's clinical interest and access to population, to the patient-powered learning network that we could rope into this project. So that's the kind of stuff we want to understand in terms of resources. We also identified co-learning as a guiding principle. And Amy already asked, do we need to understand what convergent validity means? We're going to try to address that a little bit by hosting what we're referring to as learning sessions right now. We recognize we have a lot of different expertise around the table here. So what we'd like to do is have, over the course of the grant, I think we said 6 different learning sessions, beginning with Lisa Meltzer and others leading us in understanding what the state of the science is around children's sleep. Because I, for one, don't know very much about what the research is telling us about the best interventions for sleep and other science that's current. She'll teach us about that. We can have a discussion. We also thought that we would lead a couple of sessions on research methods, try to keep that kind of fun and light because half of it would be kind of qualitative, but then some on the other side, the mathy stuff, so that we can all be on the same page of that. We also haven't spelled this out in great detail, but we'd like for a couple of learning sessions to be led by youth and parents, and then also by clinicians and advocates. And I think the impetus for that is really because we really want to understand what needs the different groups have to ensure that the tools we're developing are going to be meaningful and are going to meet those partners' needs. So we can give some more consideration to that in the very near future. Lastly, guiding principle of continuous partnership improvement. We're hoping that you will be very kind and help us by completing some questionnaires or having some discussions with us from time to time about how we're doing with the partnership. We want to assess maybe 3, possibly 4 times over the course of this project how we're doing on things like open communication, trust, empowerment, shared decision-making, information sharing, and all of that. And then, of course, we will develop partnership improvement plans based on what we learn from that as needed, so that this is a process by which we're learning how to do this for sure, and expect there to be some flexibility about how we're implementing it. Any thoughts or comments, questions about all of that, the partnership itself?
So can I just add in here, so for, Jeannie, I don't know if I should call you this because of your background, but for all of the lay people who aren't really into all of, understanding all the science, the idea behind some of the learning sessions is not to make us scientists, but to get us to the point where we're speaking, where we don't have to keep squeezing that bird or speak when we get it, so that hopefully there will be just certain terms that we can get to understand that so that we can meaningfully engage, so that we won't be sitting here saying, well, what does that mean, but I'm afraid to raise my hand. It's to really kind of level that playing field.
Great point. I think also to your point, Amy, we're not trying to make people into a role that they're not fulfilling. We want everyone to represent their role. So as you're contributing to this project as a parent or youth or scientist, you're representing that role. That's how we're going to get unique perspectives into the project. I'm sorry for droning on. I'm almost done. I just want to mention a couple concrete activities in case you're wondering about how we would be asking partners to contribute to these different stages of the instrument development. I mentioned before that we're going to start off with doing these cognitive interviews, right, where we're asking people to help us understand how understandable the measures actually are. We're hoping that partners will help us in this by helping to review the procedures. It's important, obviously, that the way that we're doing these interviews, the questions that we're asking, the way that we're getting people involved, participants, the consent process, all of that is acceptable and will help us to get high rates of participation and also just improve the quality of the data we collect. We're going to collect a lot of information from this, and we're going to need some help interpreting it through the lens of a parent, child, youth, or clinician, advocates, and so on to make sure that these items are useful for different purposes. When we actually go out into the field and do survey administration, we're hoping, again, that the partners will help us make sure these procedures, what we're actually going to do, are acceptable, and maybe even help us to make some contacts with different groups that we may be working with, such as in oncology, it's a new one for us, or pre-test some questionnaires with some folks to make sure everything is going to work. During the time where Brandon goes into his office and cranks numbers, we do, as I mentioned before, are really going to need partners to help us understand if and how certain items are actually useful for measuring sleep health, given what we're going to learn from Brandon and others on the analyses and your impression as well. And also to make sure that the full product, the item bank, the short forms, the smaller numbers of items are useful, are meaningful, and so on for real-world applications. It's going to be a really important time where we say, hey, what about this combination of items? Is this going to work? Well, we might expect a stakeholder or partner to say, we're missing a really key element that's important to my group. So we'll need your assistance with that as well. So that hopefully gives you some sense of what activities we might be asking you all to contribute to.
It works. So Lisa is going to run through, the first couple of steps of what we've done so far and what were the results from that.
Really cranky.
Yeah. It's verifying my connection.
No.
Do you have this before?
No. Can you just open the slides? That's not me. I don't want to show. You slides up and have her advance them.
Is the current presenter Catherine?
I know.
So, okay.
I ended it. Right.
But with the go-to meeting just is Catherine.
Oh.
Now
I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, it's me. not doing anything because I'm on it. Sorry, Lisa. If you can.
Okay. So now you want to see my screen. Okay. Hold on. Let me get those slides pulled up. So can you all see my slides now?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to run through the first steps. I will do this pretty quickly because some of these things have already been said, and plus I just talk really quickly. So there you go. First step, really to begin a project like this, we have to figure out what it is that we want to measure. So, we've talked a lot about sleep and sleep health, but what does that really mean? And so we have to define that and come up with a really good way to say this is what we want to measure, so then we can know that we are actually measuring what we want to do. So we started initially with a different series of interviews. We interviewed 10 sleep experts, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And then we did 42 interviews with parents and with children ages 8 to 17. So for our expert interviews, we basically talked to a lot of people who know a lot about sleep in children and adolescents. So we had physicians with different backgrounds, including pulmonary medicine, developmental and behavioral pediatrics. We had psychologists, both clinical psychologists as well as experimental psychologists, people who just do research in that type of area, not necessarily in practice. We did have a sleep nurse researcher who has done a lot of actual basic animal research. So he's done a lot of work looking at sleep in animals and how that relates then to animal behavior, linking it as a model somewhat to ADHD behaviors in sleep. And we had an ethnographer who is somebody who studies the everyday life of different people. And this is somebody who's gone different places around the world and studied sleep patterns and sleep habits and how that is affected culturally and cultural ideas of sleep. So really tried to get a broad base of people who know and have studied sleep to help us understand what it is that we might want to measure. So we asked a whole bunch of questions. We did what's called a semi-structured interview. So we asked very specific questions and then followed up with prompts to really try and get the meat of what somebody is telling us. So we started with how do you define healthy sleep, and depending on what they would say, we would follow up with additional questions. We asked about different types of factors that would influence sleep quality in children. We talked about whether or not we think children can attribute their daytime functioning issues to sleep. So as a parent, you can clearly tell if your child's not sleeping well. They're more moody, they're more irritable, sometimes they're hyper, and you know that's because they haven't slept well. But we want to really understand if we think kids can make that attribution as well. At what age can children provide information about their own sleep patterns? And, lots of feedback about it's so child dependent. So, I'm a sleep doctor and I have a 5-year-old, and so every morning, what do? We talk about his sleep the night before, and he can tell me what time he went to bed and what time he woke up, but that's because he lives with me, and I'm not sure that a 5-year-old would normally be able to do it. So does that start at the age of 8, 9, 10? Again, some kids may not even realize it until they're in high school, what their sleep patterns really look like. And then at what age are parents no longer able to provide information about children's sleep? So again, this idea of, parents of young children are very involved with bedtime and sleep time and nighttime. But as children get older, that parental involvement pulls back, and so parents may not be able to provide the best report. Some of the takeaway messages that we got back was that there is definitely a need to create the survey, so that's awesome. Everybody supports the idea that we're doing this. And healthy sleep was defined in terms of these factors. We want to help kids do better during the day. So again, we know if you sleep well, that's going to help kids do better during the day. Healthy sleep is promoting wakefulness. So again, keeping children awake and alert and wakeful during the day. We want to define sleep in terms of the quality and the continuity of sleep. So continuity is this idea of when you go to sleep and then you sleep well and then you wake up, and it's sort of a continuous process through the night. And wrapped into quality and continuity can also be the quantity of sleep as well as the scheduling of sleep. And so we're still teasing apart some of those ideas. And then, of course, healthy sleep habits, which we always like to call sleep hygiene. But it's even more than that. It's just really having the good habits, such as diet and exercise, but related to sleep. So having the schedule, removing technology from the bedroom, limiting caffeine use. In our child interview questions, we really tried to poke at some of the things that we had asked our experts about. So what do kids think of when they hear the word sleep? and what does it mean to a child to have a good night of sleep or a bad night of sleep, because that could be very different from their perspective than from a parent or a clinician perspective. We ask children if they feel sleepy during the day, and in sleep we have this semantic sort of thing about there is a clear difference between being sleepy and being tired. So if I put you in a dark room and I have you lay down, if you are sleepy you will fall asleep. If you are tired, you will just lay there because you don't have the energy to get up. But we don't really know if children can differentiate between sort of those separate feelings of sleepy and tired. And then we asked children to remember specifically a time if they had trouble sleeping, and really started to see if they could attribute any of their daytime functioning related to that. So what did they notice about their body, their thoughts, their feelings, their ability to do things in their learning at school? We had similar types of questions asked to parents. Do you hear your children talk about sleep? And what do you think children mean when they say they had a good night of sleep? We also asked parents what they think causes their child to have problems sleeping, because it could be both biological factors and environmental factors, so things within the child as well as things within the child's home, room, school, things like that. What does a parent mean when they say that their child has deep sleep? As a clinician, we get this a lot. Parents will walk in the door and they say, my child never gets deep sleep. And you don't really know what that means to a parent and why is that important. And what are the general signs that you look for to help figure out as a parent when your child has not had a very good night of sleep? So what we learned from our parents and from our children is that there were these two main areas of sleep that parallel what the adult promise sleep-wake measures already looked at. So sleep quality, which on the negative side could be sleep disturbance. And then wakefulness is the daytime functioning, which if it's going poorly would be sleep-related impairment. So we have those sort of paired together using the older terms, but sort of bringing this in from more of a positive health aspect as well to capture sort of that continuum of sleep. And this is where it was mentioned before was the suggested area of this third area of sleep practices. And we're still really fleshing this out, and we'll take all sorts of input as we go along with this. But these are sort of behaviors, they're actions, they're ways that you set up your life, but basically things that kids do or that are in their environment that create healthy sleep. So these are these healthy sleep practices that I was mentioning before. So the step 2, we took all this information and we also did a really detailed literature search, which means we went in and found basically every article that had ever used a questionnaire for research in sleep with kids. And we pulled all of those and we made a list of all of the final questionnaires that had been used. We found more than 300 of those questionnaires. We got a hold of almost all of them. I think there was only a handful that we were not able to actually locate. And from all of those questionnaires, we pulled the items. So if the question asked, you know, my child snores at night or my child has difficulty falling asleep, and we pulled every single one of those items from every single measure. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of overlap. Each questionnaire asks very similar questions, and so we would try and condense it down to sort of the main question that was being asked across the measures. Of course, if it was worded differently, we would keep those different wordings because that will become important in terms of how we start to ask children and parents about the sleep. So we created all of these item lists, and then we assigned them to different sleep concepts. And Catherine showed a much clearer version of this earlier, but these concepts, we call them facets. And so it's basically an idea like sleep depth, sleep onset, which is when you fall asleep, sleep continuity, which is through the night, awakenings through the night, dreams. So those are our concepts. And then each item was assigned to one of these concepts. And this is tricky because some of the items could fit across multiple concepts, and so sometimes we would do that. And you can see on this table as well where we got the items. So some of these items, the wording came from the adult version, and that's going to help us hopefully down the road create this lifetime measure of sleep. And then the new ones are ones we pulled either from questionnaires or we created based on our interviews that we did with parents and children. And then the reading level that was also alluded to earlier is how difficult is it to read a question like this, and these are grade levels. So it's a first grade level, sixth grade level, that type of thing. And then our third step, which is what we're in the process of working on right now, is this translation into other languages. And we've received feedback, and I think this was discussed pretty clearly, but we want these questionnaires to be useful for everyone. It doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak. We want to be able to capture sleep across the world, basically. I have big goals in life, right? So this is one of them. And by having this measure that we can translate and will mean the same thing other places, it's great to be working on that up front. So we have our expert, Helena. It's been wonderful, and she lets us know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So I threw in just a couple of examples. So one is I tried hard to fall asleep, which I hear kids talk about a lot. I try really, really hard. But that's an American expression, to try hard to fall asleep, and that's difficult to translate into other languages. So we have to think about other ways of asking kids about falling asleep or trying to fall asleep. The next one, an attribution, I felt grouchy because of poor sleep. Grouchy is a word that doesn't translate well into certain languages. And so, we tried to come up with some alternatives. Is it that I feel grumpy, I feel irritable, will younger kids understand irritable? So really choosing the wording of these items is a very detailed process to make sure we're capturing exactly what we want to capture, but that everybody reads the item in the same way so that we know we're getting answers that are representative of what we're asking. And I think that's all I have to say. So how do I send it back to you?
There he is.
Stop showing screen. There we go. Change presenter. Who wants to be the presenter?
Me. Rachel.
Top promise?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Now that picture looks a bit old of Avi.
Yes, he was 18 months there. That is in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So,
years.
And, yeah, he just turned 5 2 weeks ago, so 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
I'm going to Jackson, Wyoming on Saturday.
Yay! It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Thank you for that update. It's excellent.
Does anybody have any questions on what we've done so far? I know we're running right on the hour and a half right now, and we only have a few more things to talk about. We're going to wrap it up with what are the next steps of the project. Once I get my which we've asked Christopher Forrest to talk about. It's basically, I can talk about more of the research side of it, and you share your ideas about the expectations of us as a group and what each of the stakeholders groups would bring or expected to do within the project, because we all have different roles in what we are going to be doing. So the next steps in the project is, Lisa and Catherine both told you about the processes of how to develop the questionnaire. You start with the qualitative work, which is the literature review, the expert interviews, the semi-structured interviews with children and parents, and analyses and such. We are moving into the phase where Helena has done our translatability review, which was amazing. We started to look at the results of that. And our next step, I think, for the group is to start to share those with everybody, not only the core team that we have here that meets weekly about the project, but also to bring it out to the whole group so they can give us their input on the items. So that work will be coming up next. We're also, doing more of the logistical things for the management of the project itself, like putting in IRB applications and those types of technical things to move forward to go into the survey administration, where we will set up, the cognitive interviews that we've talked about with doing it from the different places. So this phase that we're in right now is more of the development of research methods, getting everybody involved, everybody's input in the front, so that we can carry through the processes of developing the questionnaire. So Dana is the research assistant that's been working with us on this project. You get a lot of emails from her and about the meeting invites. We have decided that everybody's availability works the best if we are having our group meetings on Tuesday. So we will be sending those invites out to the group to join us as a larger group, and each of you have different expectations depending on the role that you play within the project of how often. Everybody can come anytime they want. You know, if you want to come more than once a month, if you want to come more, you know, all the time, that's great. You know, but the core team will be there once a week for an hour. We will ask stakeholders of the engaged family planners and advocates to be monthly.
Yeah.
So I should know this, but sorry, but are we scheduling them for the morning time?
I'm not sure, 100% sure we have that time where we would that we would like to meet monthly with the full group. We don't have yet a time scheduled for that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, what we have right now is a Tuesday morning time that's working for what we call the research management team, right, which are those with asterisks on that slide, right? So, and we'll clarify that with an email follow-up to this meeting as well.
But will we need some of the other parent leaders to jump in?
Yeah. Yeah, we want to be sensitive to the fact that not only do we have parent leads, we also have an amazing group of youth who are going to be joining us from time to time. Hopefully, the two young women on who are joining us are going to hopefully be able to be present about monthly, and then when the young guys come, you know, we may need to be flexible with our timing given school schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that's the biggest challenge is getting a huge group with a lot of different schedules and a lot of different roles together. So if anybody has any other creative ideas, you know, you want to throw our way of how we could do this, or you know, the best way to do it, we will work that. But you know, we will be flexible and we will be, you know, reaching out. We'll try stuff. It might not work, and we will try again. We just want to make sure that everybody is, you know, engaged as much as they can within the project, and feel free to say that something's not working. Let me know. Anybody can send anything to me, and I can funnel it to anybody who needs. If you have a project-related question, myself and Dana, you know, we'll be able to field those for you, or if you have any concerns, you can reach me as well.
The things that are upcoming, do you mind if we have, please watch out for a doodle poll probably to schedule our very first learning session, which Dr. Meltzer is going to lead us in, and Lisa's going to help us to understand the state of the science and sleep. I think that'll be really cool. We're also going to be asking, as I mentioned, because we're moving into developing the methods for the cognitive interviews for stakeholders to help us by reviewing those approaches and giving us some feedback. Lastly, we'll be asking most everyone to help us to review some items as we move forward. So those are the three things that are on the relatively near, that are going to come up relatively quickly. Chris, is there anything else that we might ask stakeholders to do very soon?
No, but can I just...
Yes, partners. Yes, please.
So my goal is that at the end of the project, that everybody involved in it has a sense of ownership. You feel like you've contributed, and that you are a partial owner, if you will, of the product that we're producing, these new measures of children's sleep health. That's number one. Number two, that you can explain to your mother, father, husband, wife, or child what we've done. I call that the mother test. It's really hard sometimes to explain this stuff, and so at the end of the project, hopefully we'll have the language that passes the mother test. And then number three, why this is important and why people should use what we've created. So becoming an ambassador to your respective communities is really important as well. So those three things, to me, would be, you know, ownership, the mother test, and serving as an ambassador would be key goals for us as a team.
I will also send around after the meeting some notes, action items, a slide deck, the profiles again, some contact information, basic overview of materials on the project itself for your resources, and contact information, more of the project-related things as well. This was also recorded that we'll have available and up, and we're looking at other ways to communicate effectively for the whole team. So if anyone has any ideas on how to do that, please let me know as well. So I think the last thing that we had on the agenda was just to do a question and answer session quickly. If anybody has any specific questions for the team or anything that they would like to bring to the table, then I invite you to do so at this moment, at this very moment.
Yeah. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So for the cognitive interviews, have those, or is there a certain group of, I mean, I'm just thinking, is there a certain group of kids and parents who we're going to? Are they going to be representative of kids who don't typically have sleep problems, kids who do, like kids with autism or ADHD?
So I don't remember the total sampling plan. If I typically in cognitive interviews, we do try to make sure that we have representation of both people that we expect may not have sleep problems and those who we expect may. Sometimes it's a surprise, right? Because we find kids in the in the so-called general population, it turns out they really do have some sleep challenges. So, but we're going to do our best in to make sure that we get good, a breadth of experiences.
I think we have some plan for sleep lab type things, and definitely for the general population using the CHOP networks and things of that sort. But we're still working out some of those.
Right, and I think we're doing cognitive interview here at CHOP with our sort of be centered here in the recruitment and the actual administration of the interviews.
The other opportunity is to do what we're doing, but then to extend the cognitive interviews, if you will, to an online platform.
Yeah.
Through StaffCon, just to ask people, present the item and say, maybe we link it to patient priorities, and they present the items. They can do 20 items. Just write down what this item means to you.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be interesting to see.
It would be interesting.
Whether or not we could achieve saturation of the thing.
Yeah, it would be interesting. We've never done that before, but certainly we've worked with the family partners here at CHOP, some of our family advocates who have helped us to understand the best way to ask a question like that, and we've really made some change. So maybe that would be something to consider. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about that.
Hi, this is Elena. I was going to suggest that some of the questions asked match what usually we ask when we debrief translated versions, because that's actually always been one thing missing, is a comparison between the English interview and the target language interview. So that question, please tell us what this item means to you, is one of the questions we usually ask. And we also ask, what answer did you choose and why? Or what does this word mean to you? So I was thinking, for example, the word grouchy. If you want to find a replacement, it would be perhaps informative to ask kids, what does this mean to you, grouchy? And other words like that. But those are the three basic questions we use in cognitive debriefing for linguistic validation purposes. And it would be interesting to be able to compare what you get when you ask those questions from the English speakers.
That's a great idea, Helena. We should probably connect offline to make sure that we are kind of asking those questions the same way. The questions you outline are very consistent with the questions we've asked in the past for cognitive interviews. But you mentioned, what does this word grouchy mean to you? We also, as I'm sure you do too, develop these item-specific questions, right? We had a certain, question of, we're not really sure about the meaning of a word or understandability of a certain word. So we should probably connect on that, because we may want to ask similar, item-specific questions in cognitive interview in your debriefing interviews versus our cognitive interviews.
Right, and they inform each other. So it would be also good to, what we ask now in English will inform the future translations.
Oh, right. Good point. Any other questions, comments? Levels of excitement? People waiting at the stage? I don't think so.
We might need to put the Jeopardy in the middle.
Yeah, I think we may have to do that. Maybe we'll do a post-test at the end of this
Every meeting will have a quiz.
A quiz.
Yeah, right.
Which is the following items cannot be translated into Spanish. Lena gets those always. Okay.
This is Kari Oakes, and I actually have one logistical question, and maybe I missed it because, excuse me, it was a little bit hard to hear a couple of things. But are we going to have any kind of a virtual workspace or a document repository or anything like that going on in addition to the sort of touch-base calls or whatever?
That was what I was referring to as finding a way, to connect all the people together. I was thinking of, having one place that everybody can access, and it's have some ideas. I haven't presented them yet, but like a website everybody can go to access that we can post stuff and things of some sort.
It ends up usually not being a very easy question to address because of all that kind of stuff. Does anyone have any limitations that they're aware of around virtual workspaces? Like I can't access, Google Docs or.
Well, I can't access Chrome.
Anything on the?
Why not?
I can message you. Our little baby broke nonprofit has been experimenting with a couple of different virtual workspaces that are cloud-based and free. I can, Slack is one that we've used that allows different conversation threads and file storage and blah, blah, blah. So when you get down the road, I can tell you kind of what our experience about what's worked and what hasn't is, just to put into the mix.
That would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we found anything perfect.
Generally, no.
Right.
Okay, that's an important point, yes. Thank you.
What would be helpful, too, is, Kara, as you were saying that, I think it would also be really helpful, too, once we get that site, to be able to post some articles and like, I know as a parent who has a child who is dreading high school next year because of the early hour he has to get there, it would be really cool to see, articles posted about what your different groups are doing and kind of what's going on across the country.
What if this is a topic for a conversation with Susan Redline? Maybe they are obstructive sleep apnea, but they also are focused on sleep. And maybe there's a sleep health corner, and it could drive more people to their website to offer that. What we do is just kind of like maybe we could rotate it across the partners. We could do monthly blogs, updates, and just kind of make it more of an open notebook type of project, but through their website. The idea of having our file, I think that's what Carrie was suggesting, is that we create a filing system that anybody in the team can access. Makes a lot of sense. We can use Dropbox, Box, whatever the team can have to do with independence. But I really like the idea of taking advantage of their website that they've already stood it up.
Yeah, and people are already sort of going to that potentially for some resources.
Right.
Good. It gives us better.
But just like it overly ambitious.
Yeah, it gives us a better bearing. Yeah. It gives us some visibility. We have a description of our project to generate some interest as well. So, any last comments or questions?
Having like an exchange form? We don't have anything like that.
No, because people can't access our systems from the outside very easily either.
We can set up they can set up a website, but
get in line. Okay, everyone.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Comments? Great. So then we conclude our meeting and look forward to some more information from us as next couple
weeks. All right, thank you, everyone.
And, thank you for
everyone for being part of it.